We have to tweak the thing.
That's Armageddon. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dylan Knows at 4 p.m. on a Sunday here in lovely, well, I'm in Baltimore, Tony's in Jersey, Bronwyn's in Canada, and Myrna's in outer space, maybe, I don't know. New York, I guess. Anyway, we're here today. How's it going? Dylan Knows is the weekly talk video whatever show, the greatest video show of all time. On YouTube. I'm on episode 69, so fantastic. Yeah, pretty cool. And what my show is basically is every week, every Sunday, usually at 12:30, it's a different genre that I cover, and this week is my international show with our international snark aleck, Miss Bronwyn. Hello, Bronwyn.
Hello.
Now, Bronwyn, unfortunately, she's up in Canada, and she's got the Canadian flu, so she's not too good. So she might be skipping out in a little bit, but that's okay because I still have Canada Dry, so we still got the international aspect going with it. So.
Feeling the love, Dylan. Feeling the love.
And making his triumphant return to Dylan Knows since he helped create it, the great-grandfather, not great-grandfather, the great Tony Solo, grandfather of the Snark Alex and of Dylan Knows. Hey, Tony, how's it going?
All right. How's it going, man?
Good.
He does look a day over grandfather.
It's good, though, but it's always good to have Tony back on. He helped me out at the beginning, was my tech guy for like the first 3 episodes of Dylan Knows, and then popped in periodically, and then it'd been a little while since I had him on, so I said, hey, let's get Tony back in here. And making her first appearance ever on Dylan Knows is Myrna. Hi, Myrna.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
So that's good. So this is Dylan Knows International, which usually means it's a round table where we discuss all kinds of different things, and we usually start off with the rant. But I've decided that I've been trying to get this episode out for a while. It wasn't necessarily going to be with International. It was actually going to be under the Supernatural branch of Dylan Knows, but as you saw last week, I have dissolved the Supernatural version of Dylan Knows just due to the fact that Larissa and I pretty much covered everything and nothing really new and exciting has been popping up. So Larissa will be making some appearances periodically, and now I've got to go back to the drawing board and figure out what I'm going to do for week 3, but that's okay. We'll figure something out. But I figured this is such a great idea, and I was going to try to get Larissa on, but the timing just didn't work, and I just wanted to get this out there. So we're just going to be discussing, instead of doing the rant like we usually do for Dylan Knows International, we're just going to start right off the top with the theme for today's roundtable discussion. Since Bronwyn may or may not be here for too much longer, we want to get some of her takes on stuff, but this is one I've been trying to get out there for a while. It's the apocalypse. Everybody knows about the apocalypse. Every religion has its version of the end of the world. Every God story, from the Greek myths to the Norse mythology, have their version of the end of the world. And with the popularity of The Walking Dead and other zombie shows out there now, we've got zombie apocalypses going on. And why not? The apocalypse is a big deal also. Helix on Sci-Fi is dealing with viruses that could potentially cause an apocalypse. 12 Monkeys is a show about a virus that does affect and cause an apocalypse, so the apocalypse is a hot topic. So I figured there's many different styles and versions of apocalypses out there, and I figured we'd just sit down and discuss which we would thought would be the best apocalypse maybe to have to live through if we had to. What the worst one is, if we could survive one, if we wanted to, if there was an apocalypse that we would prefer not to be around for and we would die quickly and first, we can discuss that as well. And any idea if we're going to be survivors or what. So Bronwyn, since you're going to be leaving us soon, do you have one or two you want to discuss first up?
Well, sure. I think probably the one that got the most kind of publicity for a little while there was, the Rapture a few years ago, where everybody's like, yeah, it's going to happen, and they had the whole date predicted and the whole nothing. So I actually made plans with a good friend of mine, and we got all dolled up in dresses and went and got our nails done, and we figured, if we're going to leave our bodies behind, they're going to look good, right?
like in Independence Day, when the aliens came and they had the party on top of that building.
Yep. Yeah, we weren't welcoming our, alien or robot overlords, but, if it was going to happen, we were going to be in party dresses with our nails did.
Actually, it's kind of funny. I remember that. I was actually probably in the one of the safest places I could be if it actually did happen. My cousin had married a naval officer, and he had just finished up his doctorate program. So she was throwing a party for him at the Naval Academy down in Annapolis,
Nice.
which, if you've ever been to Naval Academy, is nigh impossible to get on unless you have all the right clearances and stuff like that. So we were in the Naval Academy surrounded by members of the Navy, so if anything bad happened, we had the access to the Naval Academy could help us out here. So
Nice.
if we got left behind, or if there was massive destruction or whatever due to the rapture. So, but yeah.
Always good to be thinking ahead. And then I guess the next one that came out, it was not that long ago. I was here. It was Ragnarok. Was that just last year?
Yeah, that was just last year.
Yeah, the Viking idea. After the whole letdown of the Rapture, I didn't get quite as up in arms about the Ragnarok. I figure, you know what, my normal outfits are pretty cute, so.
Ragnarok. That sounds like like they toured with Ozzy.
Right? Well, I was figuring if we're gonna see Thor and Loki, that would be awesome. But I wasn't holding my breath after the whole letdown of the Rapture.
What was great about Ragnarok was they said that it would be announced by a loud trumpet blast, like a blast that would fill the air, and everyone across the world would hear it, and it would be the beginning of the end. But let's go back there and think about the Rapture now. You'd be lucky if you're one of the ones that gets sucked up into heaven or whatever. But what if you were one of the ones left behind? I mean, that's another thing also that's shown. HBO has. It's not necessarily they said it was the Rapture, but it's similar. 10% of the population disappeared or something like that, and they're thinking it might be a Rapture thing. So, would you guys, let's just say if you, you didn't get taken up. Do you think the Rapture would probably be one of maybe the easier apocalypses to survive? I mean, the rumor is that when the Rapture happens, the worthy go to heaven, and the ones left on earth are going to get ready to go through 100 years of hell. But
Persecuted, yeah.
But do you think, though? I mean, if we only lose, say, I don't know, maybe 10, do you think it would be that big of a deal? I mean, I guess leaving behind all the criminals and the sinners, maybe.
Yeah, because if it's the top 10%, but then, I mean, realistically speaking, would it actually change that much? Because let's be honest, the things that are going to change in a situation like where we have an apocalyptic event means, to me, given all of the movies and TV and stuff like that and whatever, it usually means martial law. It usually means a breakdown of our telecommunications. It usually means a breakdown in manufacturing and things like that. So the worldly goods and all of the stuff that we're used to that we kind of take advantage of in the first world are going to kind of go to hell. That's usually what apocalyptic means to me, right? But let's be honest. If Rapture happens and say we lose 10% of the population and they're all the 10% like the best people in the world, none of those people are going to be in government. So,
well, the way
a lot of our kind of systems in place are really going to change.
Well, I would guess that 10% would be the allegedly the good people.
Yeah.
Would be the ones that went. So, but let's just say it was 10% across the board. There's going to be somebody that's flying an airplane that's going to get taken out. Okay, that airplane's not going to have a pilot. Maybe not have a co-pilot. That's going to come down and hit somewhere. There's a nuclear plant somewhere where there's the main engineer who knows what the hell he's doing, and he's doing something, and at that critical moment, he could possibly get sucked up, and we could have...
no, there's way too much redundancy in place in nuclear. That stuff I know a little bit about.
Okay. They had a lot of redundancy in Japan, and just one little earthquake, and it was earthquake proof, and but it can't withstand an earthquake and a tsunami. But guess what? It probably couldn't have withstood the tsunami. So what I'm just saying is, sometimes all you need is a couple of little pieces here and there, and my statement is, at the moment that it happens, there will be some problems
Oh, of
because
course.
key
Of
people
course.
in key
Someone will be
places
driving
will
a
get
car.
sucked up.
Yeah, of course.
So there'll be a
Anything
lot of
like
people
that,
driving
you know,
cars.
you bring
Yeah,
in
bus drivers,
disaster.
trains.
And that's exactly what happened in that show that was short-lived, Fast Forward, where
Oh yeah.
people
So,
kind of and I never read the book, so I don't know how that ended up, but that was similar to the Rapture type effect. So,
definitely will be
um,
catastrophes.
well, yeah, there
Yeah,
will be. And what's going to happen is in what Bronwyn was saying earlier, where we do have a reliance on technology and power and
Yeah.
things of those natures, uh, there's going to be some disruptions. But you know, in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, where the guy is hunting for frogs with a spear, um, not so much for those people. Um, but yeah, I mean, as far as living through something like that, that would probably be the easiest one to
yeah.
live through.
So then you
Because I
will
mean,
be
if you
better
think
off
about
living.
it, you know,
You'll be
like you
better off
said,
living in the country or something.
or
Say.
the disaster in Japan. That was horrible for all those people who had to go through that. Honestly, it was terrifying for me because my cousin was in university in Tokyo, and poor guy, he's so cute. He's so studious. He goes to school even though they've had this earthquake and the tsunami's coming, and they're all working on
Oh my
volunteering to go
God.
and help out with the nuclear situation. And Joji just gets up and goes to class. And when he gets to school and he finds out classes are all canceled because, natural disaster,
Yeah.
he goes to his job to see if
Well,
he can help out at the
that was
bookstore.
that was also creepy because it happened so slowly, and like you could be if you were online, you could see that in real time. And a lot of people think that a tsunami is this big giant wave that comes in and just takes everything out. No, that water comes up, and it comes up, and it keeps on coming up, and there are waves, but I mean, I
It
remember
sucks
watching
back
it. It took
first, too.
yeah, it took 10 or 15 minutes for the water to come in and go out,
Yeah.
and it seemed to be happening in almost slow motion. But that's what a tsunami does, and a lot of people don't realize how strong water is.
So
Yeah.
it was pretty terrifying when we couldn't get in touch with Joji. But, once we figured out he was okay and all of, our friends and family were okay, and um, not to in any way downplay the level of disaster, life goes on. It was horrible. It's still an issue. It's like, in New Orleans. New Orleans is forever different, after Katrina and everything, but people are still living. People are still partying at Mardi Gras. People are not in any way to downplay the level of disaster because that whole city has changed, But there
I
are
wouldn't
enough
even
people,
trust living there.
I
I mean, these people were underwater. I mean,
it doesn't make it immediately easy to live through, but in the long run, I think Rapture would be one of the easier kind of apocalyptic events to live through because of the resilience of the human kind of nature unless there's an apocalyptic event that really, really destroys our infrastructure across the board. I think that's they're going to be one of the easier ones to get through.
Well, with Katrina, I remember watching that one on TV and having the reporters that were there and while it was happening. And at one point, they just showed this parking lot full of school buses, and the mayor is telling people that it's all right. You can come to the Superdome and be safe there, and everybody knows how that happened. And one of the things that those people and people in this country should have learned about, and I saw it firsthand with Sandy here a couple of years ago, was you can't rely on the government for anything. Okay? Don't. Because the government is not prepared for that kind of stuff. The only thing the government can do, like the United States government doesn't have tents and food and all this stuff just sitting someplace waiting for something to happen. Okay? They're not going to be there for you. What you have to do is you have to prepare yourself, because I know we were out of power over here for 24 hours after Sandy, and there were people that were acting a little bit freaky. Not my neighbors, but there was, there was this one guy, like he walked in. I was in this one 7-Eleven I found with power, and I went in there to get hot coffee. Okay, and
Priorities.
Say again?
As in priorities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to know something to get a
You
hot
gotta
cup
get coffee.
Myrna
Get a
would,
hot-
absolutely.
No judgment.
That's right.
no,
I
just to
gotta
get a
get my
hot,
coffee. Whoops.
they were
Exactly.
open and you could talk to people, but I lost power for 24 hours. One of my friends who lives in the next town up was out of power for 8 days or 9 days.
Jeez.
Yeah, my
Okay.
boyfriend Steve was out of power for 11.
But the funny thing is, like, less than a mile from my house is a gas station on a main road, and there was people coming down south from North Jersey to get gasoline. Okay, and if they would have driven just another quarter of a mile down the road, there's 4 more gas stations that had no lines. So we had no problem getting gas and stuff once power came back. But what I saw in that 24 hours was I saw a couple of people who were acting like Rick, after he woke up and getting a little bit crazy. And that's the part that scares me.
People panic.
About the whole thing. So if you take anything away from this little discussion, prepare yourself, because the only thing the U.S. government can do for you is give you money, okay? And it could get to a point, depending on one of these scenarios that we talk about later on, that the only thing money's going to be good for is for sparking up a fire, because that's the only thing it's going to be good for.
That actually
Look at
makes
that. They want
Speaking
they
of
want some
planning,
of the people to pay.
does anybody have their sort of zombie survival plan in place?
Yes, I do. It's called, I have pasta down here, and I have a whole bunch of canned and dried food. I've got enough food here for about a week.
Nice.
Plus, not that that's enough, but plus, if you keep stuff in your freezer and you don't open, I have a freezer. It's just a freezer, and if you don't open it and close it, that should be good for at least a week, if not longer, if you don't open and close it a lot. And but let's face it, Bronwyn, I can get this out of the way. I live on the East Coast. Dylan lives on the East Coast. Anywhere on the East Coast of the United States, from Washington, D.C. up to about Boston, is freaking toast. Okay, there's just way too many people up here. There's just way too much population, and when you have that many people potentially becoming a zombie or fighting for the same resources, it could get pretty hairy around here.
Getting out of a population center, it's a good idea. It's a good plan.
Now, Myrna, what part of upstate New York do you live in? Is it kind of urban, not urban, rural, or do you have? Is there?
It's not rural. It's a town.
Yeah,
So
she's not that far upstate.
No, not that bad.
She's what, about an hour north of New York City?
An hour and a half, yeah, depending.
Hour
Like
and-
one of my mom's is about an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, so she's still in that band doing,
Yeah.
she's dying with the rest of us.
Yeah.
Now, what about you, Bronwyn? I mean, up there in your area, are you in a possible bad zone also with lots of people, or?
Yeah, Southern Ontario is pretty much the most populous part of Canada. The city that I live in has about 400,000 people. So yeah, the whole sort of zombie survival guide tells me I'm getting the hell out of Dodge. I drive I drive an efficient car. I'm really good with a hockey stick, and I have parents in rural Ontario, northeastern Ontario, so we got a plan. Canada's got a metric F-ton of of clean drinking water, because it's got all of the lakes and stuff like that, and it's got lots of arable land and way fewer people. So,
Yeah. There's still areas around here that are not that populated. You have a lot of land. And
exactly.
I think I can survive. You grow your own things, I suppose.
I think, like back in the day, the whole wisdom was go west, my son. But should there be an apocalyptic event of zombie or viral nature of some kind, I think the popular adage will be go north, my son.
Yeah.
Yeah, north. I would just go higher up. That's it.
Well, you see,
I'm fine.
the bigger problem with a zombie apocalypse, though, is that everybody that dies becomes something that you've got to run from.
Yes,
which
exactly.
which increases the problem with the zombie apocalypse exponentially.
Well, and it depends on the zombie though, because when you have the slow shuffling zombies or the running angry zombies, right?
Yeah, the
Because
ones that can
running
climb.
angry zombies, you're probably done. Like there's very little chance of survival on that one. But the slow shuffling zombies, and it's funny because I have a little bit of data actually to back this up. Not that we've had a zombie apocalypse, of course, but
We talked about this on Thursday though, so go ahead.
in the city that I grew up in, Ottawa, it's like the capital of Canada, there's a couple of universities, and at one of the universities is a professor who, as part of his research, developed some modeling techniques for sort of biocontainment and for tracking viral containment and things like that, right? So he was developing these population models to see about the spread of viruses, and he, as a demonstration of how his models worked, he had generated, and by generated I mean made up, 3 different data sets based on the different kinds of zombie apocalypse that have been sort of postulated in popular culture. So the slow shuffling zombie to the, fast rage motivated zombie, and one in between. And he modeled how the outbreak would go and what the best responses would be and things like that, and your likelihood of survival. And he so the upshot at the end of the paper was that his models worked pretty well, but also that if you want to hope of surviving a zombie apocalypse, you want to hope that it's the slow shuffling zombies, and you want to kill them quickly without prejudice.
And supposedly they say that if you live in flatter plains, it'd be worse for zombies, right? Because the zombies will be just.
Right.
So hey, I live higher in the mountains, so I'm okay.
But you wouldn't want to be in a ski resort, according to Kelly.
Why not? Let's freeze them.
Well, yeah, I know. That was my point too. But never mind.
Well, when in doubt, get on that ski lift.
In The Walking Dead, Bronwyn, at the beginning of that show, in the first season especially, when there was lots of zombies, and they were, let's call them fresh zombies,
yes.
They were running. They were the running, angry zombies, and then in subsequent seasons they became more of the ambling, shuffling type. And in interviews they have said that it's because they are trying to show that the zombies, for the most part, are aging and deteriorating.
Cool. And really,
which
it's interesting to see if they starve to death.
I'm guessing they can, but my whole understanding of the zombie virus thing is when they're eating, they're not necessarily eating to survive, but more because it's a base instinct to do that.
They're vectors, they're not people.
Right, and it's also a way of spreading the virus. So it's not necessarily, but you see, the thing is, even when now in the later episodes, when someone is a fresh zombie, like Merle seemed to get really deteriorated really quickly, and he shouldn't have been as bad as he was.
Although you could argue that it's because they're all infected already.
Right, but he should have had the ability to run.
It could be that they were able to run at the beginning because the infection was taking over their muscles that hadn't been infected before, the cells that hadn't been infected before. But at this stage, everybody's completely infected. So as soon as they turn, they're already at that sort of debilitating state, right? It's like turning a child versus turning an older person, right?
Okay, I'll disagree with you, but I'm not going to argue the point.
I'm playing devil's
No, only because everybody is infected, but when Rick got out of the hospital, it was weeks and weeks after, so that should have taken place. So when he comes on the scene, so when they're in Atlanta and they're dealing with those running zombies, like I said, it was at the beginning, and there was probably a lot more fresher zombies than there are now, but that should also happen in their present time. If somebody changes, they should be like a raving lunatic zombie and not a laid-back shuffler.
It should be interesting to see if maybe for the prequel show that they got the companion show that's supposed to be a prequel, not prequel, but at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse, if they might investigate that a little bit, because that might, if that's the case, maybe we'll see more of the fast zombies then, because if if you said, he's saying that we want to show the deterioration over a period of time, they should conceivably be, since they're at the very beginning of the zombie apocalypse, they should be the faster running ones. So that'll be interesting to see if they stick with that.
It could be about the mutation of the zombie virus as well itself, right? So, because
I suppose, sure.
viruses change as they change host.
No, I know I know you discussed this a little bit and Snark Out Radio, but I'll just drop it here. Do you guys think you could survive zombie apocalypse? I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I know it's hard to say because you don't know all the variables. You don't know what's going to happen when it actually does happen. Where the amount of, like, maybe not everybody in your neighborhood is going to get the zombie infection. Maybe it's more people exterior, outside, and maybe it's going to take a while to get to you, but you hear about it, and it gives you a chance to build up things or escape. It's hard to tell. But I mean, hypothetically, do you guys think you could figure out a way to survive?
I think I'm in a pretty good position to do so. My apartment is high and relatively isolated. I live by myself. I have an exit out onto the roof, but other than that, I have one door. And I'm pretty good with my hockey stick, which does not need reloading.
And I will echo that, except for I do have a couple of places of entry. I am very good with the couple of aluminum baseball bats that I have. Nice. And the advantage to aluminum is they won't break. Yep. But if you remember, it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago when there was that Epsom salts zombie outbreak in Miami or down in Florida, and I think that's the way I picture it starting out, where it would be like it would simmer a little bit and then get worse and worse and worse. So it's not going to, like, I don't feel that if that ever happened, and it's never going to happen, people, let's face it. But like, you're not going to fall asleep and wake up in a world that has changed. I think that it would be in the news and the background and stuff would be happening, and then it would, so you would have a little bit of time to prepare for it.
Not like Shaun of the Dead?
Not like Shaun of the Dead.
Which is still my favorite zombie movie. I'm not.
Oh my goodness!
What about you?
I saw some of that one the other day.
Oh nope, there they are.
What about you, Myrna? Myrna, you think you could survive?
Yeah, I think so. I have a couple of things that I could hit zombies and kill them. I do have bats. I definitely have
Nice.
a hammer, a knife. Definitely. There's a lot of places that you can go.
Yeah, I think once again, it's hard to say. I think I would because I'm not to my own horn, but I like to look at different angles and maybe think ahead about, if I hear something's coming, maybe try to think ahead a few steps. Granted, there's going to be all kinds of other things that could come in and change in a second, but if you can get that general baseline down, it's like, okay, what would happen? Have all these different things. What would happen if this happens? What would happen if this happens? What would happen if this happens? And you'd have the different ways to escape or how you're going to survive. To be honest, I think I'd be okay where I am right now, too. I mean, we've got the one entrance at front of my house. I've got one in the back here. Granted, it's glass, but that might be, we can maybe put some other stuff up in that and not block that. But that's really the only entrances we have in besides the windows. So, and we've got, behind us is nothing but, there's like a forest, and then there's 795, which is a highway, major highway, and then there's an electrical area where we have lots of power. That would be maybe the only problem, is that we have a huge electrical kind of plant over there, which controls the electrical maybe for the general area, and if something bad happens, that might be one of the first ones to go out. But we're lucky enough that all of our wires are underground, so when we have like storms or whatever, we tend not to have a lot of electricity or blackouts go out because the stuff is underground. The only time we might is if something happens at the actual facility, where some gets knocked out that way, but we're not in danger of like icing or unless it's the wires at the power plant, but like none getting ever to cause our blackouts. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I got a grocery store right up the street, so get my get my looter in there and get some of that stuff too.
Make sure your kids don't turn first. Oh man.
And that's the problem. That's the problem with the zombie apocalypse, because you're actually fighting a war on two fronts, unless you're part of a group, because you've got the zombies that you're fighting off, and then you're going to have to deal with other survivors who are also fighting for the same resources that you are. But and supermarkets and like places like Costco and those sort of places will be emptied out first.
Yeah.
If you could map out in your area, like you've got 795 by your house, if there's any warehouses there, if you could find out where the distributors are in those, that would be better, because you'd be able to find a lot more food. And the problem is, getting it back and forth and stuff. But that's the toughest thing. Is not only are you trying to stay alive by fighting off zombies, but then there's other people that are fighting for the same resources that you are.
The other people will be the most dangerous. Over here, the power will be gone. That's like the first thing. Gone.
No, it's true. But that's always the interesting thing about zombie movies, right? Is the idea of which is actually the monster, the human survivors or the zombies themselves, right?
Yeah, you have to worry about everyone. Yep.
Which is interesting, because when you have a situation like that, or even something like with, say, the Ferguson shootings and stuff like that, it gives you an excuse to, let's go out and be bad. And that's not right. I mean, let's face it, when a college wins like the national championship or whatever, or your Super Bowl team wins the Super Bowl or the World Series or whatever, you always hear those stories of, people, knocking over police cars and setting fires. Like Vancouver did it, a couple years ago when they won the Stanley Cup. They had, all that, massive looting and setting of fires and knocking over of cars and stuff like that. And if something like that, that it's something so benign, okay, your team won, yay. I'm excited too. Yeah, the Ravens win, yeah. I ain't going to burn my car. I'm not going to burn up the city. I'm not going to torch. I might go outside, yell and scream and honk a car horn, but that's going to be about it, I'm not going to do anything.
In Vancouver, that's a good example, because in Vancouver, that happened, the rioting, and then there was so much shame afterwards that people came out of their doors the next day, and the whole city came out to volunteer to clean up. Like, they don't really publicize the good stuff that happens after something bad like that happens. Everybody came out and cleaned that city up. And people really had a sense of unification after this horrible and shameful event, because that was something to be terribly ashamed of. Like, that was just ridiculous. Seriously.
But that's the big difference between a zombie apocalypse and something else happening, and that was a great example, Dylan. But infrastructure, for the most part, should remain intact, except for when society breaks down, and if there is a fire that happens because of a lightning strike, there's no fire department there to put out the fire. But the roads should still be there. Everything else should still be in place.
It's just until it stops being maintained.
Or if it's something like, if there's a pump that brings water into your faucet, okay, and when that does not have power anymore, you can turn on your faucet and not get water, not get clean, fresh water. But that's, that won't happen for the most part in the zombie apocalypse, but it could happen under different scenarios where there's immediate breakdown of infrastructure and support systems.
You all right, Myrna?
Yeah. Just listening.
Yeah. So we're big zombie people, and we talked about it a lot. So we can there's a whole bunch of others we can hit. And you have a good point. I mean, something like what about like a climate change? What if like the day after tomorrow, or you've got the two-pronged event. You've got such thing like as a day after tomorrow, where the ice caps converge down from the North Pole due to maybe pole shift or whatever. Because I remember that was a big thing a few years ago also, was maybe I think around the year 2000, 2001, they were saying that the Earth was going to shift its axis and that, you know, it's going to move, everything that's north would be then like facing east, so that would melt immediately, and then we'd have an almost immediate freezing of whatever the west was, turning into freezing like that. But I mean, so you've got that kind of climate change where you've got the freezing just comes from the north or even up from the south to hit both ends to freeze, and then you've got the reverse where it would actually go backwards and it heats up. And I don't know which one would probably be worse. I think they would both be worse. And I guess, they say climate change is something that happens over a long period of time, but what if there is something that happens that causes a sudden shift?
I got one for you, besides the pole shift, which is a good one. But in Yellowstone National Park, there is a super volcano. And if the whole park, because of the geysers and stuff, has the potential to erupt into a super volcano. The last time it happened, it dumped up to 10 feet of volcanic ash up to 1,000 miles away. Okay, and if you remember, a couple of years ago, there was the Iceland volcano that erupted, where they had to cut down air traffic like through northern Europe. Part of Britain and Ireland, Germany, and those countries up in that area, they had to suspend flights because it would just take out a plane. But the other thing besides it basically cutting this country in half, because you wouldn't be able to fly over it, would be that all of that volcanic ash that was in the atmosphere would actually cause a winter. And with that type of eruption, it could actually be 2 years in a row where there is no summer in the northern hemisphere. So it's not just a United States event, although it would be worse here. It would be a global effect, and it would, something like that happening would basically be, let's kiss global warming goodbye, which I'm in favor of global warming, by the way. But besides kicking
you want to be warm.
Yeah.
I think we're talking a little bit science fiction and science fact here.
Well, no. I believe in global warming. I don't believe man is causing it, but a volcano of that magnitude, if it was to erupt in that way, could cause.
Certainly, and part of that is because of all. It's not just the volcanic ash. It's a lot of
the gases and stuff that come out of it. Yeah.
But yes, a huge volcanic eruption could definitely have a very big impact on our climate. Very, very big impact, and it will. And things like that are cyclical. It's not specifically global warming, although the globe is warming. It's climate change, because that warming effect has multiple impacts depending on where you're located in the temperate or the Arctic regions and things like that. Like things that happen in the Arctic atmosphere and in the Arctic climatic zones, they are actually multiplied. Things that happen in the Arctic have more of an impact on the temperate areas than stuff that happens in the temperate areas. So that's part of it as well, right? So that's one of the reasons why the melting of the polar ice caps is such an issue. So yeah, global warming is not necessarily the specific title. It should be climate change, because the warming is definitely something that happens. It's part of climate change, but it's also cooling as well, and it's because weather and climate are not the same thing, right? So when you have climate change, you have more extreme weather, but more extreme weather could result in huge winter storms as still be global warming. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's why I'm in favor of global warming, because you get to a certain point where you move that tropical zone, you move it up the coast a little bit. Now the tropical zone encompasses up to Baltimore, which means it's warmer where I live, which means less snow. And anything that we can do to speed up the process. And I've got a question for you, Bronwyn.
All right.
I had an idea, and I'm thinking that this could possibly work.
All right.
Everybody on the East Coast, you got millions and millions and millions of people, go outside with hair dryers and point them all due north and all turn them on at the same time. I'm talking about hundreds of millions of hair dryers on at the same time, sucking the air from the south, which is a little bit warmer, heating that air up a little bit, And doing this should be able to blow a storm up into the Arctic and away from the East Coast. And I think we should try it starting tonight because it's a smaller
Are
storm.
you kidding me?
See if we can blow it up the coast. And if we can't, if we can get that one done.
I applaud the depth and the breadth of your ambition here, Tony. I really do.
So what are you trying to say? You don't think it would work?
No. But we'll tell all the Floridians, yo, suckers, you're going to freeze now.
No, why would they freeze? We're sucking the warm air up, so it'll get warmer in Florida.
Yeah,
You're not listening, Myrna.
Couldn't it be like a...
I think an intro to meteorology might be worth taking before we start undertaking the massive kind of trying to organize people in that regard first. But I applaud your ambition on that one. I do.
I'm thinking it could work. I mean, it's not. It's like the beehive effect. It's not just one worker that's going to make an effect, but it's millions and millions of people out there with their blow dryers, and maybe they're for about a half hour. That's all.
And all the power will be gone. Blow all the fuse.
No, it won't. One per household, maybe two. If you got a couple of people who are a little bit more ambitious, they're like, okay, I'm going to climb a ladder and do it, or I'm going to go up on my roof.
I think there might be one or two variables in here that you may be failing to account for, but I enjoy this. I think this is great. They're very creative, very creative.
Well, I mean, everybody could take the hair dryers and then point them directly up and try and,
there's always got to be that one person that goes crazy. And then they go with something bigger because I got better. And then that's it.
Well, there's a saying that every hurricane starts with the flapping of a butterfly's wings in Africa. And that one little flap of its wings pushes a little bit of air, and that mushes up with some more air, and it snowballs. Might actually be
a desperate misquote, but yes.
Hey, listen, come on, I'm full of misquotes. I call them Mr. Quotes still.
That's how those myths come out.
So do you guys think then, if something like that would occur, like a climate change, massive amount of freezing happening quickly or massive amount of heat, do you think you could survive that as well? I mean, I guess what you'd have to do, and I guess if the massive amount of heat comes, you'd either probably want to head further north where it might be cooler possibly, or further west where you can maybe get a little bit of, oceanfront property because the ocean will be overflowing the East Coast and right over the mountains.
Dylan, I told you, my theory is right now I'm 90 feet above sea level where I'm at, and they're saying that it's possible that the oceans can rise 60 feet. So I've got beachfront property right here, but it's not now that it's going to be beachfront property. So I'm just trying to speed that process up. I can get myself a boat, dock. But to answer your question, there is. I mean, if you've ever been down, like to the Dominican Republic or any of these islands in the Bahamas, people basically live in shacks, and their houses are mainly built to keep them dry, and just about that's about it. They're living in with tin roofs and stuff. If they got put into an area where they were now cold and we were hot, hey, I can open up my windows and I've got air conditioning, so I think I'm more set up to deal with it heating up. But my house is also made to withstand the cold, so I think I could survive something like that. But there are other places on this planet that, especially people that are in the tropics, if those are the areas that end up getting cold, then they're screwed.
Plus, you have to think of all the vegetables, the trees, the fruits. Goodbye.
The vegetables,
goodbye avocados, goodbye pineapples and mangoes.
Yep. No more bananas.
No bananas.
Yeah, and that's another. It's another thing to take a look at is what about something like that happens? Another possible apocalypse is like a drought, massive drought, where we run out of food, run out of water. That's another rough one to take a look at. I mean, once again,
desertification.
Yeah, there's really.
Well, that's part of the supervolcano though, because basically that thing blows up. it's taken out the whole breadbasket of the United States, plus cutting the country in half as far as transportation wise. So, although there's a lot of farms in New Jersey and in New York and up and down the coast, like Maryland and Delaware, there's lots of chicken farms and stuff, and we could probably produce food for ourselves.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not going to get from the West. And hey, you're not out of it either, there, Bronwyn, because
She gets cold though.
super volcano is going to mess you up too.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I like the cold much, so I can't survive in the cold. I have enough of that.
So, does that mean then if the ice caps start descending
trouble.
down south, you would be heading down to like Mexico like
I
they
go
did
head to the heat.
tomorrow?
I'll fight the people. Get out of my way. I need the sun.
So those are ones that we probably might have you're right, Tony. A zombie apocalypse is never going to probably happen. But these ones we just talked about, there are possibilities that it could happen.
Yeah, that could.
And I guess that's a scary thing to think about a little bit. Another one that we touched on a little bit due to possibly what happened with the super volcano as well is like a nuclear sort of apocalypse. I mean, granted, back in the 80s, that was a bigger threat with the Cold War and all the discussions about that. But I think it would be a similar situation, correct? That's one of the things they were talking about, was that it would cause the atmosphere
nuclear winter.
Yeah.
The nuclear winter. Well, you want to know something? It's reduced, but I mean, there are people on this planet that would love to get their hands on some nukes and would love to blow them up. I don't know if we could have a situation where it was, the U.S. and Russia, or the U.S. and China exchanging, arsenals, which unfortunately Canada gets sucked into that too, because that's where the NORAD radar things, whatever they're calling it now, space comm.
Yeah. We're aware.
So the radars are up there, so they get lucky and get targeted too, but the problem with that, Dylan, is we're done on the East Coast, because I mean, I'm not more than 10 miles from Fort Dix / McGuire Air Force Base, and not too far from you is Annapolis.
And
Plus
Washington,
and Washington and Norfolk, Virginia, the naval base down there, and I'm halfway between New York City and Philly, so bye.
Well, it depends on the payload too, because you're gonna say you get a strike. You have your blast zone where everything's obliterated, and then you have your radii out in different levels of radiation poisoning, right? Where you're going to last minutes, hours, days, weeks.
Do I have any near me? I don't think I have any of those plant things.
No, but you would probably get some of the residual.
I'll get it from the bottom.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, and then you end up with those, the post-apocalyptic future type things, with you have all of the birth defects and the craziness. You have stuff like you see on Total Recall, right? Now, again, we're blending science fiction and science fact again, because that's what we do. But the radiation effect is pretty teratogenic, right? So all of a sudden, anybody who's pregnant or going to be pregnant, and they're you've got 14 legs and
animals with 2 heads.
Well, the other part of that too is that depending on where you are when it happens and what the weather conditions are, there's going to be a lot of radiation around for either a long time or a little while. And the thing is, unless you're walking around with a Geiger counter, and I know all of my neighbors have one.
Well, never mind bioaccumulation.
Yes, and everything else that goes along with that, because you could be walking into an area that looks okay, but is just so hot that 5 minutes later you're pulling out clumps of hair, and when you're using pulling out clumps of hair as a barometer for how much radiation's in the area, it's a little bit too late. Yeah.
I think it's similar to Chernobyl, right? I mean, can you go into Chernobyl now without a protective suit? I mean, is there still warnings up about things? I remember when our good friend Tony Josh Tate went in there. He went in there. He still had like the suits and stuff on just in case. But then wasn't there that movie with the kids going in?
Chernobyl Diaries.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah, I remember that.
I'm sure that you can't get close to the core, but I wouldn't want to go anywhere near that. Um, but it's radiation is relative. Um,
That would
the
be the worst
yeah.
apocalypse. Anything
Well,
nuclear.
the fact of the matter is, though, there are a lot of variables. But let's face it, from let's say from Boston down to Washington D.C., there's going to be so much crap coming this way, and the rest of the country doesn't get spared because the missile silos are out in Montana and in sparsely populated areas, but they're still going to try and hit those.
Well, and never mind
And
that those are not the only hot targets, right? You're going to look at
right,
power generation. You're going to look at population centers. You're going to look at where can they do the most damage, right? Like
right.
that's.
And what
Well,
about like a place for where the earthquakes happen? We call the faults. Maybe fault lines if they know their science hit like the San Andreas Fault or something like that. That could cause some
you
massive
drop a
damage.
nuke on, you can drop in a couple of nukes in Yellowstone, and you can maybe, I mean, it's that's science fiction, but I mean, the first targets are going to be Air Force bases, missile silos, population centers, and centers of
Theoretically,
government.
but the change, I mean, war has changed fairly significantly over the years, right?
Well,
Scarily, and you
there
look
have been generals that said that at the beginning why nuclear weapons were so strong was because the accuracy of the missiles was not that great. So they could send something to Moscow, and it would probably get to Moscow, but it wouldn't necessarily hit where they want. Now you can take a cruise missile and you could bring it right down to somebody's address and drive it in their garage if you want to. So the need for a nuke or a nuke that's really strong would not be so high. But hey, guess what? you know, if you got them, you're going to use them.
well, I'd be more concerned about terrorists and dirty bombs than.
Yes, which is what I alluded to earlier. But that wouldn't be the same as because I don't think they'd be able to pull off something along the lines of
Like the same payload, no.
yeah,
Probably.
yeah, with the amount of bombs and stuff. But yeah, they could skip your afternoon.
I mean, that's another good one too. I mean, electromagnetic bomb. One of those things that could knock out. Because you said it yourself. I mean, we're so dialed into technology now. I mean, it's scary to think about it. All the technology that we use. I mean, it's everything seems to be run by computers. Nothing else is really run anymore by good old-fashioned writing on paper or stuff like that. So you get one little nice electromagnetic pulse, and supposedly it could knock out all your internet and all your computer systems.
Dylan, that's another apocalypse scenario with a solar flare. You can have a solar storm that allegedly could knock out satellites in orbit, but also knock out power grids on the ground. And that's one of those. That's almost like the zombie apocalypse, where stuff stops working, cars stop driving, and all this other stuff. I think it's a little bit far-fetched, but
We get hit with solar flares all the time.
we do, and it doesn't happen. And they're saying that
every time you see the aurora borealis, that's pretty much what you're looking at.
But that it does have the potential for taking out infrastructure without destroying it.
Yes.
And like you said, Dylan, there goes your communication, there goes power distribution, and once you lose power, people go batshit.
It's true.
Couldn't do my show anymore. I'd be pissed.
Backup battery somewhere. No technology.
As much as I'm sad to leave the conversation before you guys hit viral load, I think I'm going to have to bow out. I'm sorry.
No problem. You hung in there for an hour. I hope you feel better, Bronwyn. And hopefully we'll get you on here back again next month, and we'll have a little more fun. Maybe nothing quite so deep and like we're used to. We're also talking about alcohol or something. So.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care of yourself, Bronwyn.
Bye, Bronwyn.
Bye, Bronwyn. It was fun.
Yeah, and she's right. I mean, that's another one that is a big one sitting out there. Also, is the viruses. The super virus.
yeah.
I mean, if you've ever read Stephen King's The Stand, that's one of the first ones I ever read about a massive virus infection that created sort of an apocalyptic situation.
Yeah.
And then with all the TV shows out there now, Helix and 12 Monkeys and stuff like that.
And the strain.
And the strain, yeah.
Yeah, that's like a plague type scenario is similar to the zombie apocalypse, where people are just dying a la the strain, a la the Stand rather. The strain is more like a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Vampire zombie thing, yeah.
Yeah, but the Stand, I mean, I read that book a couple of times, and there is nothing scarier than something like that. But that's also one of those things where it starts out with the slow burn.
Yep.
And the only way that you can, unless they've got a cure or a vaccine for something like that, or antibiotics work, there's no way that you can plan on surviving it. You're either going to get it and die or not. And then it's just surviving afterwards, which could be the problem.
Or the viruses take out a lot of people, then that's a problem. You need the CDC?
No, the CDC ain't got nothing for you. Believe me.
To find a cure.
Yeah. Like I said, the CDC ain't got nothing for you. You want to know something? I got the flu shot this year. I got the flu shot this year, and they came out about a month ago and said, hey, guess what? They missed the strain. So the flu shot that you got, if you do get the flu, it'll minimize the effects and minimize the length of time that you have it, but they missed it. Okay? And, they come up with a different flu shot every year. Okay? And these are people who know who think they know what they're doing. So.
Yeah, but viruses keep changing, just like codes.
That's why they come up with a different shot every year. That's why they come up with a new shot every year. And sometimes they guess right, and sometimes they guess wrong.
Yeah.
So don't rely on them to come up with a vaccine or a cure for something that just pops up out of the blue that they've never seen before, because guess what? That shit takes time.
Except like that lady from The Last Ship. That show, The Last Ship?
Yeah, I never saw it, but yeah.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
No, I've heard about that. Just never caught hold. You watched that too, right, Tony? You caught that?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's just one of those things where it's kind of like Under the Dome, where I'm thinking they could have had, I think it was 13 episodes, and I'm not sure, so don't kill me out there, but I was thinking 18 episodes would have been enough for them to wrap this whole up, because a story like that has to have some kind of finite life. And I think they stretched it out. It was doing good in the ratings, so I think they're stretching it a little bit. But it has all of the elements of, if you don't know what the premise of that ship is, a Navy ship is sent to Alaska on purpose to get it out and away from civilization. And as this virus hits and takes out about 85% of the population, and everybody who gets it just about dies, and they're tasked with finding a cure.
Okay.
Once again, a virus.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I think, so many people, you do hear about a lot of people dying due to illnesses or viruses like that. It's one of those that, once again, could potentially truly happen if a massive, a mutated strain of some form or another. Hell, I mean, measles. Who really heard about measles until recently? I mean, everyone thought, okay, measles is done and over with. They have the vaccine and everything, but now all of a sudden, oh wait, there's like 20 or 30 cases of measles now because people went to Disneyland, or Disney World rather, and came back, and now they have the measles because there was, I guess, patient zero, whatever, was down in there and spread it that way, and they spread it to everyone else. So it's that's one of the scary ones also, that anything could happen and to take it out, unlike some of the other ones.
They're telling people to get booster shots for some of that stuff, like whooping cough and stuff that,
Even the chicken pox, they get boosters.
Yeah, well, you didn't get the shot for that. You just get it.
Well, I got it, but my daughter that never has had it. They get shots. Everything just changes anyway. All the viruses just get stronger, or your body
mutate in
fight
some
it
form or
anymore.
another.
Yeah,
Sure.
your body doesn't fight it.
But what do you think about surviving an alien invasion as far as an apocalypse?
That was one of the ones I was going to discuss. That's a
and it's funny because if you look at alien invasion in the way that it's portrayed most of the time, like in Independence Day or War of the Worlds or some of these other things where they're coming down, or Skyline is another. Skyline is creepy in the fact that the aliens come, and at the end of the movie, hey, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, it seems that the aliens will suck your brain out of your head and they will put it into like a robot type thing, and then send it out, and it will go and look for more people. But it appears that the aliens are eating people, which really doesn't make too much sense scientifically. And I can go on a rant about
Skyline
that.
was hopeless.
but the problem would be that there's no reason for them to do that. All they've got to do is drop a couple of rocks on us. And when I say rocks, I'm talking about rocks about the size of, your small office building. You drop a couple of those things in the right places, and you can wipe out life on this planet as you know it, without ever having to set foot and fire a single shot.
Well, I think the idea of these aliens is to control and take over the Earth. Pretty much.
So
control.
So why would they want to control the Earth?
They want to control us.
They want to collect taxes. Why?
They want to control the people. I don't know.
Well,
why?
There have been some sci-fi shows. Once again, as Bronwyn would say, we're going into science fiction, science fact, but there have been some science fiction shows where, or movies where they want to mine the Earth's natural resources. They need it for whatever reason. They need the diamonds or the gold or the silver or the bronze or whatever. They need to, for whatever reason, maybe their planet, they discovered some sort of apocalypse on their planet, and the only thing that can solve it is something that is not on their planet but is on our planet. Instead of, maybe they've been watching us and seen how miserable we are to each other. They're thinking, okay, if we come down there and we're different, they're gonna try to mess with us. So why don't we just take them by force and not have to worry about anything? So there's one thing about mining the Earth for the natural resources. I mean, who knows? There could also be another reason, is maybe it's a military offensive. Maybe there is an alien war going on, and the Earth would make a great outpost for one of the aliens who were groups to watch that, and they don't want to have to deal with uprisings, or maybe turn us into a slave labor to help them build more weapons or whatever.
No, and that's a valid point. However, if they were going to do that, they could just as well use Mars or the Moon, and not have to go through the problem of or the trouble, I should say.
But it's not populated. We're populated.
No, but
that's the point. That's my point, Myrna. There's nobody there. If they're having a war against other alien creatures in space, and they're coming here because they need a base, why would they want to fight us for our planet when they can take Mars? Nobody's using it. That's the point.
Just maybe they could, like your favorite aliens in science. Maybe their weakness is water, and Earth is the only planet that has.
We have resources.
That I think that's a Bronwyn rant, because it's like this planet is covered with 3/4 of water, and they come here and someone throws a glass of water on them and dies. I don't want to steal Bronwyn's her thunder, but how stupid are these aliens?
Okay,
they came from billions of miles, light years away, and they come here and they get wet and friggin' die. You deserve to die, you stupid bastard.
Well, we have usable resources. Your planet's probably freezing or burning, or Mars is too hot.
No, it's the opposite. Mars is too cold.
Oh,
Venus
Mars
is
is
too
cold.
hot.
Right, but these aliens came by. They don't like water. Water kills them. This
Oh.
planet is covered with water.
Yeah.
And green.
But it's you're right. I mean, that's maybe why there has never been any alien invasions of the Earth, is that we're an insignificant speck to them. Even in Star Trek, if you want to get into more sci-fi, the aliens didn't even care about Earth. The only reason why they came to visit Earth was when they had the first contact, when we had the first warp drive test, and like, oh shit, they're starting to get a little bit more advanced in technology, and eventually they might cause a problem. Maybe we should check them out and see what's going on. And that's what led to them visiting. Granted, they weren't invading; they were, they were the Vulcans were coming just to visit, to just see how things are. If you want to get into a geeky sci-fi rant, you can do that as well.
Well,
and if you want to keep going, you want to wonder why aliens supposedly probe people. People that believe that they would be probed by aliens. Why? Why are the aliens studying us?
Daddy issues. That's why. Okay, that's exactly why. Here's the deal. Back in the Star Trek, when Star Trek was born, science. Hey, Pluto was still a planet, and science hadn't prove that there is many planets around many stars. There was no evidence of that. Now, every time you turn around, they're discovering more planets around more stars, and so it seems like stars having planets is not the exception; it's a rule. So, if you've got that many stars with planets, some of those planets are going to be in an area where our biologists and our science say this is where life can happen. Okay? But that life is going to evolve on that planet based on what that planet is. That planet's going to have its own rocks, its own chemistry. Okay? Life that evolves on that planet is going to be based on the chemistry of that planet. Those people, I'm not going to call them those aliens or those creatures that live there, okay, are going to eat the food of their planet. When they come here, our planet, the life on it, is all based on the chemistry that's here. And they may be able to eat us, but chances are they're not going to be able to, because it's different proteins and a whole bunch of other different crap. I mean, they may not even be oxygen breathers. Let's face it. They could breathe something else. They could be water creatures. The only thing that I would say is, do aliens have to have hands? Well, they have to have the ability to make some kind of a tool. So they've got to be able to manipulate their environment.
You have 3 fingers like E.T.
Well, 3 fingers. They've got to have opposing thumbs, and they've got to be able to do detail work.
Exactly.
No, because then they'll just use us. They will.
Why would they? But they can't get here if they don't have hands to make a ship to begin with. Myrna, they didn't get off their planet, so we don't have to worry about it. So we could leave them there. But so an alien invasion, other than for them. So here goes the big deal. And an alien invasion could happen and wipe us out without them even touching Earth, because one of the big things in science fiction is as a civilization grows, its need for power grows exponentially, and eventually what happens is you end up having aliens using their star for power and creating, I believe it's called a Dyson sphere, where you just take your star and you cage it and you harness all of its energy and you use it to keep your civilization going. And
sounds interesting.
Well, so you get these aliens that come here and they don't even touch Earth; they just steal the sun.
And they leave us without the sun.
Yeah, and that's it. You're dead.
Yeah.
Bye.
Technically, yeah. That's the only reason why we're alive, is because we're at that.
Yeah.
With what we have on our planet, as Tony was saying, the way that where we are, 93 million miles from the sun, is making us is the hot zone where people can survive in our way. If we were any further out, like 98, 99, 100, Could we still survive? Maybe, possibly, but it would be probably quite a different environment. And same thing if it was closer, if it was 80, 70 million. Could we survive? Once again, it's possible, but it's could be a different environment. But sure enough, if you lose that sun, guess what?
You lose the environment. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the engine. But Dylan, what you were saying is 100% right. I mean, life evolved on this planet based on the conditions that allowed it to. Change those conditions, and I'm not saying that there wouldn't have been life on this planet because I'm not that smart, but it would be a totally different place with different life forms if there was not allegedly an asteroid or some kind of object coming down and hitting right around the Yucatan Peninsula in the Gulf of Mexico, which they believe wiped out the dinosaurs would still be here, allegedly, if we didn't have the natural cycle of warming and cooling that occurs. So for millions and millions of years, reptiles were the dominant life form on this planet.
Now they can't live with us humans, or they will eat us.
But you see, those dinosaurs would be able to eat us because they did evolve on this planet. So we might not taste good, but they would eat us.
Yeah, because it is. They're meat eaters. You have meat eaters, you have plant eaters.
Yeah,
So meat eaters they'll eat whatever. I mean, it's like us. You're a meat eater. You're going to eat steak. You're going to eat chicken. You're going to eat deer. You're going to eat, anything. It's the same thing with them. They would eat humans. They would eat other dinosaurs. They would eat birds. Whatever. They would do all kinds of stuff. So, and that's absolutely right. And there's other things also. I mean, what if there was a book that I got from, I think, the National Air and Space Museum a long time ago that had all these hypothetical situations, like what if there was no moon? Or what if there were two moons around the Earth? What if the Earth was, here? What if the Earth was there? What if the Earth's rotation stopped? What if it was reverse rotation? Stuff like that. And it was fascinating stuff. It was a little too much. I think I bought it when I was like 12 or 13, maybe 14 or 15 years old, and it's all this science jargon, and I read them like, I didn't quite understand what they were saying, But there's all kinds of really cool hypothetical things. I mean, hell, even Arthur C. Clarke in his 2001 saga, in his book 2010, he had the alien type species create another sun in Jupiter. You lit Jupiter up and caused it to be another sun, and it caused the moons in the Jupiter, satellite system to be able to evolve those specific types of life forms using what they have on the planet, especially with what's the planet? The moon. One of the big
Galileo.
Io and
Io.
Ganymede, and there's
Ganymede is the one.
Like that. That would cause species to evolve into another species. Now, I think one of the questions that was asked in that book is, what if that would happen in real life? Then is Jupiter far enough away from the Earth that it would not really affect us too much, with the exception of we might see two suns in the sky. And that's one of those things that I don't know.
Pretty skies.
Well, you want to know something? You can see Jupiter with the naked eye. If it did become a sun, I think it would be a very, very bright star the way it appears now. It might just be a little bit brighter, but I don't think there would. I don't think gravity would change between the sun because it would still have the same mass.
Right.
So, and if it would almost be as if there was a binary star system. Now, what it could do is it could affect Saturn, and some of the other farther planets out there of having a closer source of sunlight and energy. But Io and Ganymede and some of the moons of Saturn also are suspected of possibly having life, and the energy, the catalyst is the gravity between Jupiter, which moves things around, and the light that they have would actually come from Jupiter or Saturn, whichever planet it is, and under the ice of, is it
It's
Io?
Europa. It's actually Europa.
Europa. But Io's in the mix, and Ganymede is
Io's
also
the
in the mix.
volcanic one. Io's the volcanic one. So the Io is more like the volcanic creation. There's lots of lava, lots of that. It's similar to maybe how the Earth was when it was forming. You know, you get a little bit of a different catalyst involved, more of a cooling aspect. You could create an Earth type of atmosphere with Io, depending on things, because they're basically looking at this is how the Earth was when it was forming, because of, you know, the magma and the heated core that we have and stuff like that. And then Europa's the one that supposedly has the ocean under the planet, but it's frozen on top because of its far away from the sun. So, you know, it's far away from the sun, so it's freezing on there. But if you can get through that ice, it's a liquid environment. And as we've had this discussion before, Tony, you know, you've got those creatures who live in the bottoms of our ocean on volcanoes that are down there sucking on carbon dioxide, you know, and they could be doing the same thing out in Europa. And Ganymede's the same way. It's another planet another moon of Jupiter that supposedly has a liquid ocean around it, and it's just frozen due to its proximity away from the sun.
Yeah, and that is definitely something we talked about as far as the black smokers, and that would be, you know, there's also in one of those shows on Discovery where they bring up Jupiter and Saturn to a certain extent with the density of their atmosphere, that they could have forms of life that possibly look like stingrays under the ocean, and because they just float, or things that are just gas bags that are floating through that, and they have gills that take stuff out of the air, and but something along those lines is a great example of aliens that if they could possibly leave their planet and come here, because of where they live, would have no use for the Earth whatsoever. Because and if you look at this planet, how diverse and how different life is, even, you know, how different life is down in Australia. And when I say life, I mean like there's kangaroos and marsupials and things that are not seen anyplace else on the planet. It's still on the same planet. I mean, we can eat a kangaroo. I mean, I don't know if they taste good. I wouldn't eat one. But
I would eat anything, but not that.
Still, I didn't say a word.
Hey.
But that basically makes the point, and so I'm sure there could be a possibility of an alien invasion, only for the fact that, hey, they can't eat us, they can't do anything with us, but because of our past, and I think Dylan alluded to this earlier, where we were a warring type, we had a warring type history, that, you know, they decide that they're going to be the peacekeepers and say, no, humans, you're not coming out into space because you're just going to try and mess up our stuff, so we're just going to put you down now, which is the only viable reason for an alien invasion. But I mean, like I said, if that's the scenario, what you got to do is drop some rocks on us. You know, knock us back into the Stone Age and say,
on top of us.
Yeah, well, no, you don't even have to do that. Just drop some rocks.
Well, no, but that's also an interesting thing to look at, because that's another possible apocalyptic scenario. Is there's this giant asteroid that's supposedly going to be coming right by the Earth. I mean, there's asteroids that go by the Earth all the time. There's comets and stuff like that. But if maybe they're able to, you know, just knock it slightly off course so that it's going to ram right into the Earth, and you're absolutely right, Tony. You take it out, you get yourself another extinction. Because as you said, that's what a lot of people believe was the cause of the extinction of the dinosaurs, was a massive asteroid coming and crashing on the Earth, causing, I believe, a similar situation we talked about with the nuclear winter and the supervolcano, the cutting off of the sun and stuff like that, turning into like a nuclear type of winter freeze out that killed them, and, you know, caused, you know, stuff not to grow anymore, stuff like that. And then then eventually, once things cleared up and things heated back up, that's when the mammals took over and became the dominant species on the planet. I mean, basically, that's another one you could think about, because, yes, comets and asteroids are constantly running past the Earth, but due to our friend Jupiter and Saturn, thank heavens for them to be out there, hell, even maybe a little bit of Uranus and Neptune, possibly, because they're huge gravitational pulls, they're able to push it away or in some cases even push it towards us as well. And that's something. But as you said, all the aliens have to do then is, okay, there's a comet, it's going to miss the Earth, let's just go over there and maybe nudge it a little bit. We've got the technology, let's just knock it off its course a little bit so that, oh wait, it's going to hit this planet. And it would destroy us, I would assume, probably, or cause a massive extinction. I mean, it depends, once again, on how big, the hit is, obviously.
Right. Blow us all up.
Okay. And with something along those lines, global effects of something hitting the ground, tsunamis and all that other crap, it all depends on where it hits. As far as, because if it hits in the southern hemisphere, the north might be okay. If it doesn't hit us right on the equator or thereabouts. But it's one of those things where, so there's so many different variables. Unless you're guiding them, and like I said, what you got to do is drop a couple rocks. So if these things happen simultaneously, you're screwing up enough stuff.
Yeah, you hit one northern, you hit one equator, you hit one southern. There you go. You've got some.
Yeah. And you could do you can do just as much damage, like you said, northern. You hit that friggin' North Pole, you hit Antarctica, and you are unleashing so much heat and so much energy that you can melt and put a lot of water into movement in a short time.
Where are these aliens getting these big rocks?
Space is filled with them.
Yeah, there's a place called
things that float.
There's a place called the Kuiper Belt, which is outside of our solar system.
Between Mars and Jupiter is the asteroid belt.
There as well.
Yeah. I mean, and all you got to do is, you put some rockets, or all you got to do is, like Dylan said earlier, those things are moving already. All you got to do is give them a little nudge and push them in the right direction, and you could set them so they're going towards Earth, and they'll hit.
And that's also something that they've been discussing too. NASA's considering finding a way to harness like an asteroid or a comet and use it as maybe a potential launching ground for a trip to Mars or whatever. I mean, they're still in discussion about, but I believe I've read somewhere that they're planning on right now they're looking at the theoreticals, how they could technically go and they can physically grab an asteroid, a pretty nice sized one, because there's some pretty good sized ones out there. You grab it and you're able to harness it and pull it out of its orbit, and place it in orbit someplace else, so you can use it as a launching pad, say somewhere between the moon and Mars, because it's a long trip. I mean, what you do then is you don't have to build as much stuff. You can store more stuff for your trip to Mars. You can plan on, hold on a second, son, and then you go in there and then you jump on that, and then you can refuel whatever, and then you can take the second jump over there.
Well, the one of the staples of Noah, they have it's a staple of sci-fi where they actually use the asteroid as a spaceship, and so the thing is, they get to the asteroid and then they tunnel it out and use the raw material that they pull out to build habitats inside the asteroid, and whatever they need. As far as fuel and stuff, they can bring up to the asteroid. But the thing about that is, you've got this asteroid now. If you spin it the right way, you get some gravity, and because it is, you're in a rock, and you're 20, 30 feet inside this thing. It's shielded. You don't have to worry about it hitting like something like the size of a grain of sand and puncturing your hull, because it's not going to happen. But that's something that's been in sci-fi for a while, and sci-fi always follows. Science follows sci-fi. Arthur C. Clarke came up with the first geosynchronous satellite idea, and after that they put one up, and figured out how to do that. And there's a whole bunch of things that.
So this would be like man controlling space, kind of controlling anything there already.
If you get enough, technology and stuff like that, you can probably harness anything. I mean, they harness the powers of the moon and stuff like that. I mean, they're talking about mining the moon for stuff as well. I mean, you start doing that, all kinds of stuff.
And before I go, because I think it's getting close to dinner time for me, so I might have to run out.
Well,
There is
it's
just
getting close to the end anyway.
Yeah.
there is one more. An East Coast tsunami, which would not be good for me and Noah and Dylan and Myrna. There's an island, a volcanic island off of the Canary Islands, and it has a fault. And they believe that there is one whole section of this thing that could fall into the sea. And if that happens, there is the potential of a 300-foot tsunami hitting the East Coast. Now, as I said earlier, I am 90 feet above sea level, and they're saying you can make it as far in as 60 miles from the beach. I am a little bit further away from the beach than that. So, again, beachfront property to the rescue. But
I feel sorry for all those people.
anything on the coast to get wiped right the F out.
Yeah, I'm more north and west of Baltimore, so if something like that does happen and it overflows, say, the Chesapeake Bay or whatever, and ends out hitting the harbor, I think my mom might be in a little bit worse situation. She's not that far away from the city, but where we are, it probably wouldn't impact us all that much, except to maybe have a closer way to the beach than, as it were, than from where we are, because it's a long enough distance from the city center where the water is that could potentially come that way, unless of course it also shoots up the tributaries and rivers and stuff, which is a possibility as well. Then maybe there might be
if it hits the rivers, maybe. I don't know how much.
Well, for Dylan, he's protected by the Delmarva Peninsula somewhat, so that would help. But what would happen is Dylan would get all the chickens.
Yeah, we would. We would.
He'd get all the chickens. And if people don't know what I'm talking about, Delmarva Peninsula, there's a lot of chicken farmers. A lot of the big chicken, like Purdue and Tyson Farms, are out there.
Salisbury, yep.
Salisbury, and they just blow that crap right into. Dylan be sitting there saying, "I wish I had some fried chicken," and then they just wash it right to his doorstep.
I don't know how much water you get up to.
Right on his doorstep.
So, on the note of chickens coming to my door, I think we're going to end this episode of Dylan Knows. It was educational, entertaining, I think. It was a lot of fun. I want to thank Tony for coming back on, and definitely I'll be seeing you again soon, obviously. Myrna, always good to see you too. Fun. And I promise next time I have you on, it'll be a more fun, not so deep and dark show. And also thanks to Bronwyn, even though hope she feels better, she had to jump out because of that. And thanks everybody who was watching. I haven't had a chance to check my Twitter feed, but it's been exploding. So hopefully we got some good response. I can respond to them afterwards. But it's now 5:30. The snow will be coming momentarily.
You're gonna get it first, right?
Yeah, I think we're gonna get it first for you guys. I think what's gonna happen with us is we're getting the Clipper. And what's going to happen with you guys is there's also like a nor'easter coming up the coast, and we're not supposed to get any of that stuff. But it's going to mix with that and cause this massive amount of snow heading your guys' way. So, so we're getting the Clipper part of it, which they're saying is 4+ inches where I am. So we'll see what happens.
I haven't looked at my news.
Yeah, well, we're 4 to 6 at this point, and they're saying
I don't know what
2
I
feet
am.
of snow. 2 feet of snow for New York City. But it's funny because when I had watched the news early this morning, Dylan, and then I got that tweet from you, and it was after 10 o'clock, and I put on the Weather Channel, and it was like, what the hell happened from 8:30 until 10 o'clock? They were like, oh, everything's fine. No need to look to see what's going on here. Nothing is going on. And all of a sudden, I'm getting up to 18 inches of snow.
Wow.
And now they're boosting it. So, but and the funny thing is, okay, Monmouth County, which is less than 2 miles away from here, has the blizzard warning. I am 2 miles away from the edge of the blizzard warning, and I have a winter weather watch going on now. But it's based on the county, and if you look at my county, it's shaped like a diamond, okay? And if you were to draw a straight line through New Jersey, it would pass west of me as far as where a blizzard warning should be. But Weather Service does it by county, so it's
Did they say anything north? I don't think I haven't seen anything.
No, they're saying north is even worse. New England is supposed to be getting 3 feet of snow.
No, it's true. They are.
I'm not trying to bust your chops. I'm just saying you're worse.
Oh, I thought I was just gonna get flakes. You people are gonna get it all.
Well, once again, they were saying 1 to 3 inches for us, like overnight, Friday into Saturday. We got like a dusting, if that. We got nothing. So. We'll see what happens, but regardless, it's only going to really affect me so much because the kids already have off. School's already closed due to a school vacation day anyway that was in the calendar,
really?
and yeah, it was this teacher study day or something like that. So it was already closed.
Teacher, yeah. They call that
teacher conference day.
Something. It was more of a teacher study day. It's where they go in and I think they get their grades done because the quarter's ending, but they also maybe do some other workshops.
Our quarter ended already. They're starting a new quarter here.
So, and Dawn was already taking the day off with them, and plus she probably wouldn't have been able to go in with her illness. So, regardless, tomorrow hopefully it's not going to be too bad because I'll be the one driving in it because I do have to, unfortunately.
So, Myrna, you got 1 to 3 inches on Monday, and then Monday night into Tuesday, 8 to 12. So you're going to end up with 2 feet of snow, and you already have a winter storm warning.
And we already have snow.
So I have snow
from yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, we'll let you all go. I know it's dinner time for lots of people.
people.
I think I just heard my daughter come in. I'm going to check on my wife. So thanks, guys, for watching. Right. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Bye. Thank you for
having me.
Tell them
we said hi.
Thank you guys.
See you guys later.
Bye. Tell Dawn to feel better.
I will.
Bye.